The diplomatic chamber was a cathedral of silence, broken only by the occasional hissing clicks of the SCI-FI translator sphere and the distant thrumming of power conduits. Floating above a polished obsidian dais, High Envoy Selev clicked a dozen limbs in what passed for anxious anticipation among his species. The lights shifted slightly, blue to violet, as the human delegation entered. They came in without ceremony. That, in itself, was the first sign something was wrong. 3 representatives. No entourage. No cultural liaisons. No planetary observers. Just 3 people in black exosuits, polished like obsidian, with a crimson crest stitched into their shoulders, the insignia of the Terran Neutrality Council. Selev's second brain began calculating diplomatic anomalies. Too few humans. No overt technology on display. Body language neutral. Breathing measured. That meant one of 2 things. Either this was a mistake, a scheduling misfire on the human end, or it was a maneuver. A statement. His 6th limb reached out instinctively to adjust his translator. Human delegates, he chirped through the device. We expected more of your kind. This discussion concerns 6 frontier worlds. Surely, Terran interests warrant a full council. The lead human, female, older, silver hair braided and tucked neatly behind her neck, sat down with a precise, military grace. You have 3 worlds occupied, she said plainly, and 3 under blockade. We're here to discuss the removal of both conditions. Ah, Selev replied. But these were contested claims. We have the transcripts. The neutral zone was. You crossed it, she cut in. And then you gunned down the relief convoy we sent to Rhea 6. That was a civilian fleet. You left the escape pods to drift. Selev blinked both sets of eyelids in rapid succession. This is not a trial, he said slowly. Surely you understand how war begins, how miscommunication spirals, how. The woman leaned forward. Her eyes, gray and unflinching, fixed him like a sniper scope. It doesn't spiral for us, she said. It ends, hard, fast, and without warning. For the first time, Selev felt a flicker of unease ripple through the chamber. The human sitting to her left, taller, younger, face marred by burn scars, tapped something on a hollow band. A projection flared into existence. Images. Lots of them. SCI-FI warships, split open like tin canisters. Ground forces, atomized mid-charge. Drones disabled mid-flight. Precision strikes so surgical, so coldly exact, that even the remains looked clean. This is fabricated, Selev hissed. This is not possible. We would have known. We monitor your movements. Our sensor webs stretch across 9 sectors. You're looking for fleets, said the third human, voice soft. We don't send fleets. Selev tilted his head. Then what do you send? The woman answered. 10 soldiers. The chamber fell dead silent. 10? Selev whispered. 10, she repeated. Each handpicked. Each trained not to fight a war, but to end one. In hours. Days at most. Her voice didn't rise. She didn't make threats. But her words punched with the force of neutron rounds. There was no bluff. No theatrics. Just inevitability. Selev's secondary heart skipped. His memory core scrambled to recall if such claims had been reported. No. Only fragments. Ghost sightings. Rumors in deep space. Entire war fronts collapsing in silence. The council had laughed them off. Until now. What do you want? He asked. The woman stood. Rhea 6. Your forces off-world. Within 24 standard hours. No retaliations. No drones. No follow ships. And if we refuse? She placed a data shard on the table. This contains the coordinates of your 10 most secure installations, she said. Your deadliest ships. Your most sacred archives. Our 10 will start there. Selev stared at it. His translator failed to keep up with the churn of conflicting impulses running through him. You would commit genocide for a border conflict? We don't do genocide, she said. We do precision. We carve out tumors. And then we leave. And then they turned. All 3. No bow. No nod. Just departure. The doors hissed shut behind them, leaving Selev in vibrating silence. 3 hours later, in a command war room aboard the SCI-FI dreadnought KZ Thalon, General Vrak slammed a claw against the interface. Why do the humans not posture? He roared. Why do they not show numbers? Because they don't need to, hissed substrategist Ermek, her chitin scraped and dulled. Because everything they've done is surgical. Tactical. There is no resistance to study. No doctrine to learn. Then we must strike first, Vrak growled. While their 10 are still in transit. You don't understand, she said softly. They're already here. And then the lights died. All across the KZ Thalon, compartments sealed themselves. Hallways darkened. Screams echoed from lower decks. Not the screams of war. Screams of precision. Of being dissected. Of death by scalpel, not sword. And deep in the war room, as Vrak's armor flared to life, a soft sound followed him, a rhythmic tap against the floor. Measured. Calm. Intentional. One human. Just one. And then the screaming began anew. The second the humans left the Hall of Treaties, a strange stillness swept over the diplomatic chambers of the Galactic Accord. It wasn't just the cessation of words, it was the cessation of breath, of movement, of certainty. The air itself seemed reluctant to flow, as if some ancient force had pressed pause on the galaxy's rhythm. Ambassador Eshtar of the Vral Confederacy was the first to speak, his voice clipped and oddly hollow. Did anyone else feel that? They left, said Valari Prince Taz, his antennae twitching with anxious thought. But not with resignation. That was something else. It was calculation. I sensed no fury, added Sharek of the Dolari mind swarm, her 8 eyes blinking asynchronously. No desperation. No pleading. Only silence. High Arbiter Tlanzer of the Yix Dominion stood from his throne-like seat, his gelatinous form shifting from turquoise to a warning hue of crimson. The humans have not conceded. They have withdrawn. That single statement settled over the room like dust on the bones of a long-dead war. Across the stars, aboard every listening satellite and diplomatic outpost, the broadcast was replayed endlessly. The moment Earth's delegation rose, the moment they turned without a word, and the moment the chamber doors hissed shut behind them. It was as if the galaxy had blinked, and when it opened its eyes, something was different. Meanwhile, aboard the UNS Resolute Fong, orbiting the Deimos relay, Admiral Suri Elon stood at the forward observation deck, gazing into the endless black. Earth was a distant blue shimmer behind her, but it wasn't Earth she focused on, it was the void beyond. The place where diplomacy failed and war became more than theory. Captain Reese Vargas approached quietly, holding the latest intelligence feed from the Accord's internal relay. They're still rattled. No aggressive movement yet. But chatter has spiked. The Vral just deployed a second fleet to the Balerian Rim. Yix battle groups are shadowing trade lanes. They know what they did, Suri said flatly. Reese nodded, but his jaw was clenched. You sure it was the right call? Walking out like that? I'm sure it was the only call, she replied. If we had stayed, it would have signaled weakness. They're used to the politics of subservience. They thought we were desperate to belong. That was their miscalculation. Reese exhaled slowly. Now what? Suri's eyes narrowed. Now we let them wonder. Galactic Accord Central Nexus. Private Emergency Summit. Panic, dressed in ceremonial robes, swept through the highest tiers of the Accord. The humans were bluffing, insisted General Jamek of the Talkai. They don't have the infrastructure. They barely have 3 long-range battle groups. Their colonies are spread thin, their hyperspace lanes exposed. They absorbed our bio-threat in the Trillion incident, interrupted Warlord Savig of the Karthari. Our engineered virus mutated every known species in under a cycle. But not them. They adapted to it. Tamed it. Adaptation isn't aggression, Jamek spat. No, said Savig, but they learned from it. We see only the surface. We've never understood what lies beneath. A silence fell. Then, slowly, the chamber lights dimmed. A projection shimmered to life at the center. A black ship. Angular. Asymmetrical. Menacing in ways that had nothing to do with size or firepower. This, intoned the Dolari representative, was detected in deep space. It did not respond to hails. It bore no registry. But it moved with intention. A human vessel. One our sensors had never seen before. A dozen voices clamored at once. They've gone dark. They're mobilizing in secret. How long have they? Warlord Savig raised a clawed hand. They never stopped preparing. Back on Earth. Facility 43, the Cauldron. Maya Ren, chief engineer of the UNS Tactical Evolution Corps, surveyed the prototype drone swarm with something close to reverence. Thousands of matte black orbs hovered in tight formation, their sensor arrays blinking like predatory eyes. Each one was smaller than a helmet, faster than a missile, and smarter than most crewed ships. Everything's synced, said her assistant Juno. No signal lag. No interference from Accord jammers. They're ready. Good, Maya replied. Upload the Abyss routine. You sure? Juno hesitated. That's war doctrine. Diplomacy's over. Unknown location. Classified human forward post. In a command room buried beneath kilometers of rock and metal, a single word appeared on a massive screen. Stand by. Then another. Wait. And finally. Trigger, response only. The humans weren't starting the war. They were waiting for it. And when it came, because it would come, they wouldn't just fight. They would end it. The word trigger still pulsed on the command center's central screen. No alarms. No lights. No dramatic music or sweeping declarations. Just cold, calculated readiness. Admiral Suri Elon sat silently in the underground chamber of Command Node Orion 3, deep beneath Antarctica's tectonic shield. The room was silent except for the gentle hum of AI routing matrices and the shifting sound of reinforced alloy under pressure. Status of the Abyss Protocol? She asked. Lieutenant Ria Tanaka, lead systems officer, replied without looking away from her data feed. Dormant. Fully armed. Ghost-linked. Awaiting signal. Any Accord movement? Nothing confirmed. But there's chatter. The Carthari deployed 3 merchant cruisers into the fringe sectors. Stealth hulls. Enhanced magnetic sails. They're not delivering anything. Suri turned to the room's central projection, where a simulated map of the galaxy floated like a living organism. Accord trade routes, patrol lanes, and known weapon platforms lit up in blues and reds. And then, like a cold breath over embers, gray trails began to appear. Unofficial movements. Unregistered ships. Assumed deniable operations. Predators don't announce the kill, said Suri. They circle. Then they pounce. And they think we're still in the clearing. Galactic Accord Black Site, location classified. Within the spiraled metallic interior of an unmarked facility orbiting a brown dwarf star, the Council's emergency division had convened. There were no translators. No intermediaries. Just leaders in all their alien forms speaking directly. Valari Prince Taz's elegant chiton shimmered under low light. The humans are not posturing. No, growled Warlord Savig. They're calibrating. Like hunters deciding how much pressure it takes to crush bone without wasting energy. Their silence is strategic, murmured Sharek of the Dolari. Theirs is not the silence of fear. It is the silence of certainty. General Jamek of the Tau Kai pounded the table. We outnumber them. In ships, systems, bodies. We hold the mass advantage. And yet, replied Tlanzer of the Yix Dominion, voice dripping in thick gel-like tones, we did not tame the biovirus. We did not repurpose it as a tactical gene map. We did not develop antimatter stabilization while still harnessing solar plasma. The humans did, whispered Sharek. All fell quiet. For the first time in 10,000 rotations, the galaxy's mightiest coalition hesitated. Uranus Black Site Archangel, deep orbit around Pluto. Within the moonshadow of Pluto, buried in a black hull lined with active stealth mesh, sat the Uranus Archangel, a warship unlike any other. The product of every lesson, every betrayal, and every word the humans had never said. Captain Reyes Devlin walked the command spine, passing data hatches, cryolabs, and anti-grav drone hangars. His crew said little, but the tension was kinetic. Telemetry, he ordered. Confirmed, replied Nav Officer Jean. Accord fleet shadowing Terran mining convoy in the Reek Belt. No declaration. Weapons not charged, yet. Devlin's eyes narrowed. Yet, he echoed. He knew the game. The Accord's centuries-old tactic. Escalate slowly, test boundaries, bait a mistake. Then pounce. But Earth had rewritten the game board. Open the ARC Codex, Devlin said, approaching the secure console. Acknowledged. Clearance level, Black 7. Awaiting command phrase. He leaned forward. Voice low. Unshaken. Let them make the first mistake. Mars High Command, Echo Dome. General Kira Anwar stood beneath the Martian stars. Her breath fogged on the dome's glass as she watched the silent trails of Terran destroyers move into formation. In the dark red sky, those formations looked like constellations, like humanity had taken the stars and placed them in marching order. The Accord doesn't realize, she said to her aide, that our silence isn't weakness. No, General? It's alignment, precision, discipline. We don't lash out. We aim. She turned from the glass and walked into the war chamber. Her voice was quiet, her orders absolute. Begin Operation Gauntlet. Galactic Accord Listening Post 43 AZ. Buried in a ring of static near a dead neutron star, Listening Post 43 AZ picked up something it was never meant to detect. A soundless signal. One pulse. Then another. Not a message. A countdown. Frequency shifted. Accord AI began recursive breakdowns of the signal but could make no sense of it. Until the third pulse. That's when their systems recognized it for what it was. A targeting lock. On them. Earth. The final breath before fire. Admiral Suri Elon stood before a bank of windows high above Pacific Command. Below her, the ocean was calm. Above her, hundreds of war satellites shimmered like new stars. Humanity has never started a war, she whispered. But we end them. And the galaxy, watching every move with trembling hands and wide, uncertain eyes, still didn't understand the most dangerous thing of all. The humans were not eager. They were prepared. They called it the first strike that never was. The Accord fleet, coiled like a serpent in the Reek Belt, continued shadowing Earth's convoy of automated miners. Dozens of warships. Zero comms. No declaration of hostility. Just movement. Pressure. And then, the humans answered. But not with weapons. Not yet. The UNS Archangel decloaked in the middle of the Accord formation. No warning. No flux signature. One moment the space was empty. The next, it was filled with a ship that should not have existed, technologically, tactically, philosophically. It was not a warship. It was a verdict. Her armor bore no nation's flag, no Earth emblem, only a single white phrase printed along the side of the dreadnought in Old Earth tongue. We know. Panic rippled through the Accord fleet. The Igrathi cruiser's shimmering path attempted to recalibrate its weapons array. Its command systems froze. Not jammed, overridden. Terran Black Ice AI flowed like water through their protocols, erasing decades of war doctrines in seconds. The Skellen heavy frigate Vyarzak-Tor began evasive maneuvers. It vanished. Not destroyed. Just taken. No debris. No energy trace. The crew was later found alive in a Terran diplomatic detention facility on Titan, sipping protein shakes and watching vintage Earth cartoons. Council response. Back at the Accord core worlds, chaos turned to rage. How did they insert a dreadnought directly into our fleet? Snarled Warlord Savik. How did they erase our systems without a declared war? Hissed Tlanzer of the Yix Dominion. And Sharek of the Dolari, always the calmest, said only, because they knew we'd understand that language. Not words. Not threats. Demonstration. Earth broadcast, response package 1. A signal was sent by Earth. Public. Unencrypted. Broadcast across every known comm frequency in the galaxy. The speaker was a woman with gray at her temples and fire in her gaze. We have been listening. Watching. Learning. We chose restraint not because we were weak but because we understood the weight of war. But let history record that silence is not submission. You sent your fleets to intimidate. You called our patience primitive. You saw diplomats. And mistook the calm before a storm. She leaned forward. Earth does not provoke. Earth does not bluster. Earth prepares. The feed ended with a global signature echo. Trigger status, passive ready. Planet Extorian 5, weeks later. The Accord's secret warbeast factories, designed for rapid biogenesis of terra creatures, exploded in simultaneous kinetic implosions across 5 systems. No beam fire. No missile signature. Just instantaneous collapse. Infiltration times were calculated later. Human Black Ops agents had been embedded for months before the Accord even knew they were being watched. Each agent wore a simple patch, a broken quill over a sword. When talking ends. Galactic Council, Emergency Reformation. It was the first time in millennia that the council chambers held no arguments. No bravado. Just trembling realization. The humans had operated in silence, struck without noise, and returned to silence again. Their weapons weren't wild like the Zarn or overwhelming like the Velkay. Their power was precise, surgical, relentless. What made them terrifying wasn't their force. It was their control. Mars Command, Mission Debrief. General Kira Anwar watched footage of a Terran Special Operations team exfiltrating from a collapsed Accord data vault. Clean. Efficient. Minimal casualties. Zero noise. I used to believe we'd fight fire with fire, she said to her staff. Now I know better. We fight fire, she whispered, with ice. And in that moment, the galaxy felt the cold breath of a species that had waited long enough. 1 year later, Galactic Accord Charter Update. New clause. Voted unanimously. No hostile force shall enter Terran-protected zones under stealth, duress, or false diplomacy. Doing so will be considered a de facto act of war. No appeal. The humans didn't ask for this clause. The Accord wrote it. Earth Pacific Command. Admiral Suri Elon stood by the ocean again. This time the water was rough. Wind curling waves. She watched children playing on the shoreline, building sandcastles while the sky above shimmered with invisible satellites, kinetic weapon platforms and orbital fortresses cloaked in silence. You see, she murmured to the wind, we don't storm when diplomats fail. She turned, walking back inside the command center. We storm when the world stops listening. Final message to the galaxy. To every species who listened. To every empire that forgot the cost of underestimation. To every predator who mistook diplomacy for cowardice. Humanity didn't roar. It whispered. And still the stars trembled. Satellite, thanks for joining us on this journey into the stars. If you're loving tales where humanity doesn't just survive but redefines the game, then you're one of us. For more bold, badass, and brutally brilliant sci-fi, hit that subscribe button to the Void Narratives. We've got more storm-brewing, galaxy-shaking, alien-humbling stories coming your way. Because out there in the dark, humans don't run. We plan. We aim. And we never miss. Milky Way Fire, subscribe now and be ready for what comes next.